Maybe I exaggerated a little about how close I was with Sasha. A little. All right, more than a little, but I did not murder my sister. I was in San Francisco when she disappeared.
Ah! How do you know exactly when that was?
Because she was supposed to come and visit me.
Sasha was coming to visit you despite the differences between you?
Yes. She wanted to get out of Santa Barbara because she was afraid of what Julia might do to her.
She really said that?
Well, she was afraid of someone. She said she was. Anyway, not in so many words, but I already knew about the affair that she had with Mason, and it wasn't too difficult to read between the lines.
But why wouldn't Sasha want to go somewhere else if things were so bad between you two?
Because she owed me money, and I needed it.
Sasha owed you money?
Yes. She borrowed it from me last summer. I can't believe that I loaned it to her. She promised that she'd figure out some way to pay it back.
Excuse me, but the last thing that Sasha would need would be to borrow money from you. Tanel gave her everything she wanted.
Well, Tanel also kept an eagle eye on every dollar that she spent, and I don't think he would have approved of her buying a gift for another man.
So, Sasha borrowed money from you to buy a gift for another man.
Look, Sasha was never particularly honest with me, but she said she was involved with this man, and she needed a lot of money. Well, for me, anyway.
Excuse me. She never bought me a thing.
My. Sasha must have been very busy last summer.
So, Sasha borrowed money from you and you wanted it back.
Yes. And then when she didn't show up in San Francisco and didn't answer any of my phone calls, I came down here.
And you'd never been in Santa Barbara before that?
No, and I've got plenty of witnesses. Anyway, I went over to Sasha's place. There was no sign of her. And knowing about her connections with Tanel, I wasn't too anxious to get involved, so I just played it cool. I hung out at the lair and hoped that nobody would ask me my name and make the connection. And then I started wondering about the threats that she said Julia made, so I came over here and started snooping around a little. And I heard you two arguing, and you were spending an awful lot of time in the garage. I couldn't hear exactly what you were saying, but I didn't have to. I saw you open the freezer and pull Sasha out.
Must have been we were looking for the bullet.
I almost passed out by your garage window. Well, I guess I always knew that I'd never see Sasha alive again.
How did you know that?
Well, she was always hanging out with these shady characters. I knew it was going to catch up with her sooner or later.
And it was probably one of those shady characters who killed her.
Why didn't you go to the police? Well, I thought about that. But I was still out all that money that she owed me. And I knew the police weren't going to give it back to me, so I thought if I put a scare into you two, I could get my money back with a little interest.
Touching story of sisterly love.
Oh, everything always came so easy for her. You know, she'd meet a rich man, and she'd smile at him, and bang, they'd be on their way. I never had any breaks like that. Then she comes down here, and right away she gets a job singing at that club. She said she was going to cut a record. I'm having a hard time coming up with the rent, and she's living in $1 million house. I couldn't take it anymore. I figured it was my turn to get a share. So instead, what do I get? I get bupkis, and I'm still out the money that I had to pay that phony psychic and the special effects man.
You actually hired a special effects person?
Well, I knew I had to do it right. Look, maybe you'd like to make this trip of mine worthwhile, so I keep my mouth shut about what's been going on around here.
You never quit, do you?
Look, if I call the cops...
If you call the cops, we're all in big trouble. Now, they're not going to be satisfied until they've poked around and found out what you've been up to in San Francisco, which, as far as I'm concerned, puts us all in the same leaky vessel.
So what am I supposed to do with the body?
Keep Sasha where she is for the time being, while Julia and I try to find out who really killed her.
Do you have any idea who might have wanted your sister dead?
No. After Tanel was out of the way, the only person she was afraid of was you.
You and your brilliant ideas.
What ideas?
Well, you see, your sister was harassing us unmercifully, and...
Not to mention trying to frame me for murder.
I came up with the unfortunate plan of having Julia threaten to kill her, hoping that it would frighten her out of town.
Well, it probably would have worked if somebody didn't murder her first. Don't you two have any leads at all?
We happen to have a crack private detective working on the case right now. We're expecting information from him any moment that will point at the real murderer.